Oh, Pac Man. Okay, now you had like as you if you've seen Dawn of the Dead, right, which was shot in I believe '77. If you see Dawn of the Dead, you will see an arcade in the mall in Monroeville, right? And they're playing the video games, right? But the '80s is when these things exploded because you had the graphics were a little better, and you had gameplay. You had video games coming like from Japan. I mean, you had Space Invaders, but you had more of these things, and they were making money. The kids, right, were dropping quarters left and right into the machines. Okay, now they drop quarters left and right into the video games that still exist everywhere. If you go into a low rent gas station, the damn slot machine, the video gambling machines. Which I have an antipathy for, but I'm getting off the point here. They talked to the creator. It was a Namco, a Japanese company that created Pac Man, and here's the creator himself, Toru Iwatani, right? And what was really cool about this article was there's things I didn't know about Pac Man. Um, Basically, that like a lot of Japanese things, and Arkham Reporter have mentioned this. The Japanese have a way of taking Western influences, okay, which initially was essentially forced upon them, taking these Western influences and then uh, changing them, adapting them, twisting them, you could say, or turning them into through their own filter, and then bringing it back to the West in a form that is at once crazy, weird, almost unbelievable, but with unmistakable ties to those Western influences. And in the case of Pac Man, is no different. But now, in terms of coming up with the game, I thought it was interesting, right? The gentle, good-natured gameplay, right? Pac-Man, he just wants to eat, and not, but these things are chasing him. They want to eat him. He just wants to eat the pellets and eat the fruit. But if he gets the power pellet, my man could turn it on them, turn the tables on these dudes and get them and eat them, all right? But they reincarnate in the box, so it's a constant, strategy, right? So he explains in the late '70s, video art game arcades, which in Japan we called game centers, were just playgrounds for boys, and the only video games on offer were brutal affairs involving the killing of aliens. Right? He's talking probably about Space Invaders, man. That game was a game changer. Okay? No pun intended. My aim was to come up with a game that had an endearing charm, was easy to play, involved lots of lighthearted fun, and that women and couples could enjoy. Right? So and yes, and so the rumors of that Pac-Man is essentially based on a pizza pie where one of the slices obviously has been cut out is true. Okay, so he's taking a Western food and turning it into a character. Okay, very interesting. Who would have thought of that? In a million years, an American wouldn't have thought of that. Okay, uh, so I thought it was interesting here too that the name Pac-Man. Now Midway was like the American. Distributor of the game, and of course they changed the thing here, right? Um, Pakuman, right, based on Japanese slang paku paku, which describes the sound of the mouth while eating. Okay, so the original title, the game title, became Puck-Man. Okay, the U.S. publisher Midway, though, I like this, renamed it Pac-Man to stop wily hoodlums, amending the P in Puck to an F. And I'm telling you, they would have done that. In Brooklyn, London, definitely they would have done that. They would have called this F man. So good job on that thing. Good gauging of human nature. So and of course the basic content, the gameplay, right? It was simple. Okay, it was the gameplay was the issue. Now you can say, oh, the video, you know, the graphics. Some of you later guys, Arkham Reporter, you'll be like, oh, this game, the graphics are so bad. Like the same thing they say about the '80s and the '70s anime, right? Oh, it's so primitive, right? But then again, wait, hey, you didn't know. You didn't know that. We didn't know that at the time. This was cutting edge. We didn't know that, right? And at the same time, I would argue that the simplicity of it is why the retro gaming is becoming big again. Okay, also for other reasons, but getting on to that once again, he mentions Western influences here, right? The adversarial TV cartoon Tom and Jerry helped shape the relationship between Pac-Man and the ghosts, right? Well, Tom and Jerry, obviously, Tom is chasing the cat, is chasing Jerry the mouse, and Jerry has to use his head to turn the tables on Tom. It's essentially the Tom and Jerry cartoon for you guys that don't remember it. I mean, I watch Tom and Jerry all the time. And he mentions how the algorithms for each ghost were different. That's right. The ghosts, they did move differently from each other. They had like each ghost had its own style of pursuit. Right. And also, he mentions another influence on, they call it the power pill concept, was a way to make the game more interesting. Rather than just running away, you could actually fight back, right? Right. The inspiration for the power pellet, right, which is this thing, right? The inspiration for the power pellet was the TV cartoon Popeye. So once again, we're taking these American cartoons that have come into Japan, and they're being filtered back to the West, the Japanese lens. So very interesting. Right? You see the different versions. I'm going to cover this because I am an Atari 2600 kid. Right? The controversial Pac Man release. Okay, embarrassingly drawing attention to itself via an Atari National Pac Man Day. This conversion supposedly resulted from marketing pressure. They wanted to. I mean, this game was huge, man. I played Pac Man as a little kid. I remember the first time I played it was in Brighton Beach. Okay, my neighbor upstairs was watching me for the day, Mrs. Schwartz, rest in peace. All right, she was a good woman. Her husband was a good man, and I remember them fondly. And we were in. She was buying bread somewhere in Little Odessa, and the video game was that I had a quarter in my pocket, so I played Pac Man, and I lasted all of 25 seconds. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but it was fun. It was like a mind blowing thing for a kid to see this crazy graphics. Anyway, but the Atari 2600, right, was made, and of course, what the whole thing I've told you about Atari was a very limited system. Okay, it was a way to get it out. Okay, more complex systems were made, but Atari's aim was to get out there quicker and make as much money as they can by having a limited system. Okay, what this did though is it made the game programmers have to work around the limitations of the system to make the things happen, which is an interesting story in and of itself. I had mentioned before. Okay, one of the problem here is right the flickering mess. Well, the flickering was you couldn't have, I forgot what they call them, sprites. There was only a certain amount of sprites you could have in an area, and so in order to get around that and boost the capability of the limited memory, they would have this flickering going on, which allowed the game to go on. So I thought that was kind of cool in retrospect. But yeah, this game was panned pretty good because look at this compared to this, right? And supposedly it made a profit, okay, but it didn't make as big a profit as they wanted, which is hilarious because now apparently you don't have to make a profit. Okay, the process is the goal, all right? But at this point, people wanted to make money, okay? You didn't make video games to make video games, to employ people, and to spread messages. You made video games to make money. Right? Of course, Miss Pac-Man, of course, I didn't know this. Miss Pac-Man, right? Midway kind of made their own game, right? Struck a blow for gender equality, right? By putting a female Pac-Man into the same danger. So apparently Midway was fed up waiting for Namco to come up with a sequel. So they made Miss Pac-Man. They essentially put Pac-Man in drag, as they say. But they also added, like, the fruit would move around. And it was a little more, they kind of changed it up a bit. Remember, they used to have the interlude where if you passed a bunch of mazes, they would have that little cute thing where Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man would, avoid the ghost monsters, would get knocked out, and they would kiss each other. Right? It was very kind of cool, actually. Oh yeah, and Pac-Man Junior or Junior Pac-Man. So Midway did it again. All right, but they did it without permission, and Namco terminated Midway's licensing agreement. Right, you don't mess with the Japs when it comes to that. You crazy? So this one I don't remember, but Miss Pac-Man was actually remembered fondly. It was a good game. So. And they show some of the other versions that came out later, but I only really remember Miss Pac-Man and Pac-Man Jr. He has like a little beanie on his head, like a little baby or something. So I'll round this out here, right? Where the creator, obviously, video games have come a long way, baby, right? But he goes how Pac-Man always remained popular throughout the years. We wonder what Iwatani made of the game's industry tendency towards overcomplication and movie-like games, along with the resurgence in retro-oriented titles. Okay, we should carefully gauge the preference of light users who normally don't play video games the preferences of video game aficionados, and then design products to suit each, he suggests thoughtfully. That is right. A sumptuous party dress may be of limited practical value in daily living, and the same applies to over-elaborate video games. In the video game market, okay, on retro titles, right, pick up and play. That was the strength of the 2600, the pick up and play. You didn't have to read a whole book to know what to do. Iwatani thinks that might be a sign the actual game, rather than aesthetics, is again becoming the main concern for developers. Right? Hardware specifications 20 or 30 years ago restricted powers of expression, and so the rules of the game were decisive in attracting users. The current boom in retro games is evidence of a universal fascination with the gameplay, right? With game playing itself. This was actually really interesting, really cool, man. Pac Man. Now, like I said, you guys, oh, this is too primitive for me, but Pac Man was huge. I remember that Pac Man Fever song. Remember? It was a stupid song, but when I was a kid, I was like, yeah, Pac Man Fever, right? But this was a huge game. I had a Pac Man T-shirt. I remember the flea market on Avenue I, which is long gone. My mom actually bought me the shirt of Pac Man, and man, I wore that thing until it fell apart, man. Good days, man. Good times. Pac Man, Pac-Man, Pop Man. So, yeah, and this, like I said, this was a huge thing, man. Remember, they had the names, right? The Blinky, Pinky, Inky, and Clyde. So, any other things I'm trying to remember while I have a little time with Pac-Man? I remember as a kid, I don't know how, I was being babysit, and then the babysitters took me to a nightclub, okay? And they were dancing on the dance floor, and I was bored, and I didn't drink because I was 9 years old, and so I started watching the older kids playing video games, and a guy beat the game. And when you beat the game, it does a flashing thing. It does a whole thing that was crazy, and then it starts over. But I remember seeing him beat that game, and I was like, "Wow, dude, that was amazing! That was amazing!" And I remember they had a really bad cartoon of Pac Man. I remember that. But well, that's what it is. You know how it is. Something successful, you gotta squeeze every little damn drop of blood out of it. So, and that's it, right? Fun first. Remember, guys, if it's not fun, get the hell out.